Over the past 3 years, something almost unimaginable happened to rent prices across the United States. They didn't just creep up, they skyrocketed at a pace this generation hadn't seen before. From coastal Miami to rainy Seattle, property owners suddenly felt like they ran the economy. Many of them hiked rents by hundreds of dollars in a single night, fully expecting desperate tenants to scrape together whatever it took to keep a roof over their heads. But 2025 has flipped that script. That overwhelming leverage landlords held is evaporating. Cities that recently overflowed with bidding wars and frantic apartment hunters are now dealing with a flood of vacant units. For the first time in 10 years, rents aren't only dropping, they're dropping hard. Developers overshot demand, investors stretched themselves thin chasing returns, and the renters they relied on have finally reached their breaking point. In several major metro areas, prices are sinking by double-digit percentages. Discounts, move-in deals, and those long-gone one-month free offers are suddenly everywhere again. Landlords are scrambling, tenants are calling the shots, and the power dynamic in America's rental market is shifting all over again. You're watching Discover the Cities, and today, we're breaking down the top 10 U.S. cities where rent is crashing and landlords are in full panic mode in 2025. Stick around for number 1, because what's unfolding right now could reshape renting in America for years. And if you want deeper, cinematic dives into the country's housing trends, make sure to hit subscribe, and let's get into it. Number 10. Austin, Texas. Austin's dramatic rise was the stuff of legend, and its downturn is proving just as spectacular. From 2020 through 2023, the Texas capital transformed into the poster child of the nation's tech exodus. Remote workers poured in, venture capital followed them, and billion-dollar startups fled the coasts in search of cheaper ground. Austin proudly crowned itself the next Silicon Valley, and for a while, it genuinely felt like it was. Cranes dominated the skyline. High-end apartment towers appeared almost overnight. Landlords seemed unstoppable, increasing rents at a pace that left longtime residents stunned. But by 2025, that hot streak came to an abrupt, painful halt. Average rent has tumbled roughly 14% year over year, one of the sharpest drops anywhere in the Sun Belt. Many of those sleek new buildings that were supposed to define the city's future now sit partially empty. Rooftop pools that once hosted crowds now echo with nothing but wind. Developers who bragged about year-long wait lists are suddenly scrambling to fill units, throwing out incentives left and right, 3 months free, 0 deposits, even random perks like concert tickets just to get someone through the door. Why the sudden collapse? Austin's tech foundation cracked. Massive layoffs from companies like Meta, Oracle, and Tesla wiped out the high-income renters who fueled the boom. The Silicon Hills moniker, once a badge of pride, now feels painfully ironic. In upscale towers like the Independent and 70 Rainey, vacancy rates have hit levels not seen in a decade. Even East Austin, once the creative heartbeat of the city, has landlords cutting prices simply to stand out in a flooded market. Those who borrowed aggressively during the frenzy are feeling the sting the most. Investors who paid top dollar for luxury condos assuming endless demand are now watching their profit margins disappear under heavy interest payments and a dwindling pool of tenants. For renters, though, this is the long-awaited turning point. The city that became unaffordable practically overnight is finally cracking, shifting leverage back to the people who actually live and work there. In 2025, Austin's message is unmistakable. The place that soared the quickest is plunging just as fast, and its fall is sending shockwaves through the entire Sun Belt. Number 9. Miami, Florida. Miami's rental surge wasn't just impressive, it was absolutely blinding. Powered by pandemic-era relocations, a wave of crypto millionaires, and international buyers chasing prestige and sunshine, the city morphed into a playground for the ultra-wealthy and laptop-carrying professionals. From 2020 to 2022, rents didn't merely rise. They went vertical, soaring more than 60%. Locals were priced out, and sleek downtown towers became towering monuments to extravagance. But by 2025, that shimmering fantasy has worn off, revealing a very real downturn. Average rents have slipped roughly 11% in a single year, and vacancies are climbing steadily throughout Brickell, downtown Miami, and Miami Beach. Those highly promoted luxury buildings with panoramic ocean views and extravagant pool decks are now throwing out every incentive they can think of. Free parking, zero move-in fees, even gift cards worth a couple $1,000s just to convince someone to sign a lease. And the issue isn't only softer demand, it's mounting expenses. Insurance premiums have tripled, leaving property owners barely staying afloat. HOA fees are jumping sharply as buildings scramble to comply with Florida's tougher post-collapse safety regulations. Put it all together, and countless investors are bleeding money month after month. For some, the situation is already tipped into disaster. Units that once sold for $900,000 are either struggling to reach $700,000 or sitting on the market for months with no offers at all. Airbnb operators, once thriving thanks to vacationers flocking to the beach, are packing up as tourism cools down, and upkeep costs eat away any chance of profit. Even foreign buyers, long Miami's financial backbone, are pulling away, unnerved by increasing storm threats and the nonstop stream of special assessments. From a distance, Miami still looks like a postcard. Turquoise water, glossy skyline, sun hitting every glass tower just right. But underneath that glamorous surface, the numbers no longer add up. In 2025, Miami stands as a warning to every boomtown. The city once treated as a symbol of endless appetite is learning the hard way that when luxury outpaces reality, even paradise can crack. Number 8. Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta was marketed as the exception, the southern city that truly balanced it all. With a thriving job scene, reasonably priced homes, and a steady wave of new residents arriving from both coasts, it looked like the smartest bet in the region. Developers responded with confidence, pumping billions into sprawling apartment projects stretching from Midtown to Sandy Springs. Between 2021 and 2024, more than 50,000 new rentals came online, far more than the city was realistically able to absorb. Now, in 2025, that optimism has snapped. Rents have slipped about 9% compared to last year. Vacancies are rising across nearly every neighborhood. And developers who once bragged about full wait lists are starting to sweat. High-rises that used to fill within days are sitting half-vacant. Landlords are dangling every perk imaginable. Months of free rent, complimentary parking, no security deposit, hoping to coax tenants back through the doors. But oversupply isn't the whole story. The deeper issue is affordability hitting a wall. Wages have stalled, inflation has chipped away at whatever financial cushion households had left, and the return of student loan payments is squeezing younger renters, especially millennials and Gen Z. More people are rooming together, moving back in with parents, or simply packing up and leaving the metro altogether. Even the suburbs, which once felt untouchable, places like Cobb, Gwinnett, and Henry County, are getting pulled into the downturn. Single-family rentals that used to disappear instantly are lingering on the market, and short-term rental owners are cutting prices just to keep their properties afloat. For years, Atlanta was praised as the blueprint for sustainable, affordable expansion. But now it's becoming a showcase for what happens when growth loses balance. The cranes kept spinning long after demand tapped out. The city didn't collapse all at once. It was a slow squeeze. Developers focused on luxury over need. Landlords banked on tenants endlessly stretching their budgets. And when reality finally caught up, so did the consequences. In 2025, even the most stable market in the Sunbelt has been pulled into the storm. And for Atlanta, climbing back to equilibrium will be far tougher than anyone anticipated. Number 7. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas has always lived on extremes, big wins, hard losses, and in 2025, it's the landlords who are taking the hit. For a long stretch, the city looked unstoppable. People fled California in droves, chasing cheaper housing and a fresh start. Investors grabbed properties as fast as they could. Short-term rentals multiplied across the valley, and it seemed like the boom would never slow down. But this year, the momentum has vanished. Since 2023, rents have fallen close to 10% and vacancy rates have nearly doubled. Large apartment communities in places like Henderson and Summerlin now have entire sections sitting empty. The Strip might still glow every night, but the reality beneath that shine is far less glamorous. The rental market is severely oversaturated. Tourism, the lifeblood of Las Vegas, still hasn't bounced back to full strength. Casinos are hiring fewer workers. Conventions aren't drawing the crowds they used to, and service employees are earning smaller tips than before. At the same time, thousands of Airbnbs that once thrived on weekend travelers are now being dumped into the long-term market as owners try desperately to salvage their earnings. Homes that used to command $2,400 a month are now struggling to attract renters at $1,900, with little interest either way. Landlords who bought at peak pandemic prices are cutting rents just to cover costs, and many small investors who expected fast cash flow are quietly bowing out, selling properties for less than they paid to avoid sinking even deeper. And yet, even with so much empty housing, more units keep arriving. Developers are finishing projects that were greenlit during the height of optimism, flooding the market with another round of upscale apartments that few renters are actually asking for. In 2025, Las Vegas carries an unsettling sense of déjà vu, echoes of the 2008 crash, but dressed in a new era's clothing. The city is once again grappling with the consequences of oversized bets and unrealistic expectations. The lights are still bright, the skyline still dazzling. But behind that spectacle lies a reminder. When speculation runs wild and the fundamentals don't keep up, the house eventually wins. And this time, it's not the landlords. Number 6. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, the blazing center of the Sunbelt surge, is cooling off far faster than anyone imagined. Not long ago, it was the poster child for population growth and red-hot demand. Families from California, the Midwest, and just about everywhere else were streaming in, sending construction into overdrive and pushing rents upward at breakneck speed. Developers couldn't pour concrete fast enough. Entire communities in places like Chandler, Glendale, and Mesa appeared almost overnight, built on the promise of stability and nonstop expansion. But by 2025, that wave of optimism has evaporated. The city is drowning in excess supply. In the span of a single year, more than 30,000 brand new apartments were added to the market, far more than Phoenix has people to fill. Average rent has tumbled roughly 12%, and property owners are scrambling for attention with every incentive imaginable. Free rent, furnished units, prepaid utilities, anything to stand out in a sea of empty homes. Buildings that once boasted long wait lists are now openly pleading for tenants. The skyline might look vibrant, dotted with cranes and shiny new towers. But beneath that image, the financials are cracking. Insurance premiums and maintenance expenses have surged. Investors who paid top dollar for high-end developments during the pandemic boom are now underwater, owing more on their loans than the properties could ever sell for. And the pressure isn't limited to landlords. Phoenix's job market is tightening as well. High interest rates, slower migration, and stalled corporate expansions mean fewer newcomers and fewer paychecks to support the city's massive housing pipeline. From the heart of downtown to the furthest edges of the East Valley, property owners are facing a harsh reality. Runaway growth without sustainable demand inevitably collapses under its own weight. In 2025, Phoenix isn't merely cooling down, it's undergoing a full-blown correction. A metro built with the expectation of housing 10 million people is now confronting the fact that demand barely supports 8. The era of unchecked expansion hit its limit, and the consequences are finally coming due. Number 5. Dallas, Texas. For a long stretch, Dallas carried an aura of invincibility. Major companies kept relocating there, drawing in waves of young professionals who filled up uptown high-rises and fueled endless suburban expansion. Investors talked about Dallas as if it were the economic heartbeat of Texas, a market too powerful, too diverse, too fast-growing to ever slow down. But by 2025, that belief has cracked wide open. Rents in areas like Uptown, Plano, and Frisco have slid about 10%, and vacancies in top-tier Class A buildings are at levels the city hasn't seen in more than 10 years. The skyline may still glow like a jewel at night, but behind those sleek glass towers, landlords are growing increasingly desperate. The reason isn't mysterious, it's simple numbers. Developers built far more than the market could reasonably absorb. From 2021 to 2024, tens of thousands of new apartments came online, just as renters started pulling back. Inflation has eaten away at people's spending power. Interest rates have stayed painfully high, and many potential tenants are downsizing, splitting costs with roommates, or temporarily moving back home. In response, landlords are rolling out incentives they hoped were gone for good. Free utilities, complimentary parking, upfront rent credits, anything to stop the bleeding. Investors who depended on steady cash flow are suddenly seeing their margins vanish as insurance premiums climb and property taxes chew through whatever profit is left. Dallas used to symbolize unstoppable prosperity, but now it's caught in a risky feedback loop. Too many luxury units and not nearly enough affordable options. Even the city's powerful corporate sector can't rescue the market this time. Tech and finance employers are freezing hiring, which means fewer newcomers hunting for apartments, and longtime residents are being priced out of communities they helped shape. Yes, Dallas still looks stunning from afar, its iconic skyline lighting up the Texas night like a postcard. But down at street level, the narrative is shifting fast. The city that once felt like it had endless fuel is discovering that even in Texas, the engine can sputter out. Number 4. Boise, Idaho. Boise was the darling of the pandemic era, a quiet mountain city that suddenly turned into America's unexpected housing sensation. While major metros shut down, Boise became a beacon for people desperate for space, scenery, and a slower pace. Remote workers fled San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland with cash in hand, triggering bidding wars and pushing rents and home prices into the stratosphere. Developers scrambled to keep up, convinced the demand would never fade. But by 2025, that glow is worn off, and the downturn is unmistakable. Average rents have fallen about 13% year over year, and vacancy rates are rising faster here than anywhere else in the Mountain West. Apartments in the heart of downtown, units that once leased in a matter of days, are now sitting untouched for months at a time. The boom-era developers who rush to build hundreds of sleek, high-end complexes are staring down a brutal reality. They created a supply aimed at high-tech incomes, but Boise's core workforce, teachers, nurses, baristas, service staff, never had Silicon Valley paychecks. They watched rents break past $2,000 a month during the frenzy, and then watched the Californians who drove that surge pack up and head home. With remote work fading and out-of-state migration slowing, Boise's supercharged housing market has been left wobbling on weak foundations. Even the once coveted suburbs, Meridian, Nampa, Eagle, are taking hits. Construction sites have gone quiet. Building materials sit collecting dust. Investors who expected endless returns are now unloading properties at losses just to avoid deeper financial damage. Local businesses that thrived on waves of newcomers are struggling too. Coffee shops, breweries, and restaurants that once buzzed with fresh faces are cutting back hours or closing their doors entirely. Landlords are responding with increasingly dramatic concessions, dropping rents by $300, $400, even $500, throwing in free months and upgrades. Yet many units still stay empty. The skyline that once symbolized growth now feels oddly suspended, as though someone pressed pause on the city's momentum. Boise's story is both poetic and painful. The place people fled to in search of refuge from big city chaos is now the prime example of what happens when that migration stops and the hype evaporates. The escape ended, and reality came rushing back. Number 3. Seattle, Washington. For the first time in more than 10 years, Seattle's iconic skyline feels uneasy, almost like it's telling a different story than before. After a decade defined by non-stop expansion, soaring rents, and cranes crowding the horizon, 2025 has delivered a sobering correction. Average rents have fallen roughly 10%, and the gleaming towers that once symbolized limitless opportunity are now marked by empty floors and struggling landlords. A big part of the shift comes from tech's unraveling. Layoffs at Amazon, Microsoft, and a wave of startup failures have gutted the very renter base that sustained the city's housing boom. Buildings downtown that once bragged about wait lists are now offering cash incentives, months of free rent, and every possible perk to lure tenants. In neighborhoods like Capitol Hill, South Lake Union, and Belltown, places where discounts used to be unheard of, luxury apartments are openly advertising price cuts. And the ripple isn't confined to the city center. Suburban hubs like Bellevue, Redmond, and Kirkland are dealing with the same pattern. Renewal rates are dropping, residents are moving out, and developers who counted on a never-ending stream of high-income renters are suddenly watching inventory pile up. Several large projects have been paused or quietly abandoned, leaving skeletal, half-finished structures scattered across the skyline. Silent monuments to the belief that demand would always outpace supply. But the most significant transformation isn't just about numbers, it's about mindset. The pandemic changed how people think about work, space, and lifestyle. Many who once prioritized Seattle's prestige and tech culture are now choosing smaller, calmer cities, or entirely different states, where their dollars stretch further. The outward migration isn't enormous, but it's steady. And every household that leaves takes another slice of the city's stability with it. For landlords, the shift has been humbling. Renters are negotiating again, pushing for flexible terms, lower prices, and concessions that would have been unthinkable only a few years ago. Those shimmering glass towers, long the architectural symbols of innovation and ambition, are now reflecting a tougher truth. The market isn't invincible. In 2025, Seattle still looks breathtaking in the mist. But underneath that shine lies fragility, a reminder that even a tech-powered economy has limits, and the tremors shaking this city aren't from the earth, but from an industry learning it can't grow forever. Number 2. San Francisco, California. If there's any place that truly embodies the word collapse right now, it's San Francisco. Once celebrated as the epicenter of American innovation, the city's rental market has deteriorated into something almost unrecognizable. Average rents have plunged about 15% in just a year, and vacancy rates in the downtown core have smashed every previous record. High-end towers that used to command $4,000 a month are now struggling to fill units even at $3,000. And that's with incentives piled on. The tech worker exodus that began during the pandemic never boomeranged back. Remote work didn't fade, it solidified into the new norm. The downtown area, once humming with startups, venture capital, and caffeinated dream chasers, has transformed into a corridor of quiet glass. Entire blocks resemble ghost towns, lined with for-lease signs that feel like permanent fixtures at this point. Landlords who once bragged about easy passive income are now begging for occupants. Costs, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, have surged to the point that profits have completely evaporated. Investors who bought at peak pricing are essentially stuck, unable to refinance without taking massive losses. And beyond the numbers lies something even more damaging: perception. Concerns about safety, homelessness, and overall quality of life have pushed renters away faster than any rent discount can pull them back. Many who might once have chosen San Francisco are opting instead for places like Sacramento or Austin, cities offering more space, lower stress, and a sense of stability. Local culture is bearing the weight too. Restaurants, boutique shops, and art galleries that gave San Francisco its signature charm are shutting down. Each closure removes a little more of what made the city feel alive and irreplaceable. Even the tech identity that once defined the region is fading. Major companies are quietly leaving their headquarters behind in favor of cheaper, cleaner, easier-to-manage hubs. The irony is painful. The city that once set the national benchmark for sky-high housing costs is now showing just how low the market can sink when everything that sustained it pulls away. San Francisco's downturn isn't a blip. It's a transformation, etched into steel, glass, and empty storefronts. A powerful warning about what happens when innovation races ahead without grounding itself in sustainability. Number 1. New York City. At the top of the list sits the giant no one ever expected to stumble, New York City. For generations, its rental market felt untouchable. No matter what crisis hit the country, recessions, pandemics, market crashes, demand always snapped back. But in 2025, that long-standing myth is finally losing its power. Average rents in Manhattan have dropped about 12%, and parts of Brooklyn and Queens are seeing declines closer to 15%. For the first time in decades, renters, not landlords, are the ones holding the leverage. Incentives that vanished years ago have made a dramatic return. Free months of rent, waived deposits, upgraded appliances, anything to make a listing stand out. Developers who poured concrete between 2021 and 2023 were convinced that wealth would continue flooding into the city. Instead, many of their gleaming towers now look out over half-empty streets. A mix of job cuts across finance, tech, and media has taken a serious bite out of the city's high-earning renter base. And the international buyers who once acted as Manhattan's invisible economic engine are retreating, spooked by global instability, tax hikes, and rising costs. Even the ultra-rich are easing off. High-end rentals along Billionaires' Row are being discounted by staggering amounts, while owners of mid-tier buildings are stuck with refinancing terms so harsh they're choking off cash flow. Smaller landlords are starting to whisper about the one word New Yorkers avoided for years: foreclosure. Meanwhile, younger professionals, once willing to sacrifice anything for a tiny Manhattan studio, are looking elsewhere. Cities like Charlotte, Nashville, and Philadelphia are suddenly more appealing, offering more space and far less financial pressure. New York hasn't lost its energy or character. The speed, the culture, the beautiful chaos are all still there. But fewer people can keep up with the cost of staying. New York's downturn isn't explosive. It's gradual and unmistakably intentional. The city is going through a slow tightening, a recognition that even here, growth has limits. For the first time in living memory, New Yorkers are saying the quiet part out loud. The empire of rent has finally hit its ceiling. The skyline still shimmers every night, but beneath that glow is a city pausing, for just a moment, to breathe. And across the country, something bigger is unfolding. A quiet revolution is reshaping America's housing landscape. For the first time in more than a decade, renters have the upper hand. The era of chaotic bidding wars, last-minute applications, and relentless rent hikes is giving way to empty apartments, sliding prices, and owners scrambling to adapt. But this shift is about more than numbers. It's a change in mindset. Millions of Americans are starting to question whether renting, or even buying, makes sense in an economy where living costs keep rising while wages stand still. Developers chased luxury. Renters wanted livable homes. Investors hunted returns. Families needed stability. And now, the imbalance has caught up with everyone. Some cities will bounce back, others may shrink. But the lesson is universal. No housing market can outrun reality forever. You've been watching Discover the Cities, your home for cinematic deep dives into the transformations reshaping America. If this breakdown opened your eyes, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and pass this video along. Because what we're seeing in the rental market today is only the beginning. And as always, the numbers tell the story.